Okay, welcome everybody to the video guide for this interrogation game that we're role-playing here. So we're using things like the input, if-else statements, and just kind of variable types like strings, integers, etc. To create hopefully a fun game. There's also some while loops in here. So it's just kind of a text game, but we're just trying to use them in a way that is hopefully engaging and a little bit fun and also quite silly. So if you're watching this, then you are hoping to be guided through how this works. And so I've copied in the pseudocode as comments from the Brightspace file in here. So kind of after each comment, I'm going to just write the code that would need to go there for this to work. Now, my take is, creative in its own way. If someone is making their own game, they're absolutely going to have a bunch of different text than what I choose to do, and they would probably choose a different character. Overall, I'm choosing SpongeBob SquarePants for this one, since I think it's a character you're all pretty familiar with. But, even if you want to go through this, watch the video, but change the questions, feel free. Those questions are just for fun, so make them whatever you want. So we're going to start right away with the first bit of pseudocode that says declare Boolean variables trapped 1, trapped 2, and trapped 3. So the idea here is that the person in the interrogation has to keep answering the question until they get it right. So that's why we're calling them trapped 1, trapped 2, and trapped 3. There's also one for success if they win the overall game, or one if they give up. If they choose to quit, then we're going to skip out the game and kind of exit it, but then they will fail the game and there will be a failure message set there. But first, we just need to make these variables. So I will put one on each line. So we have one called trapped 1, and we're going to set that equal to true. Oh, actually, I guess I should change this. Trapped 1 and trapped 3 should be set to true. I'll change this for the actual pseudocode online. Set to true. And then we'll say that success and give up are both set to false. So we'll start with a little correction. Most of this is planned out, so that should be hopefully the only error. Okay, so trapped 1. Spelled that right. I need 2 P's. Trapped 1 is equal to true. So they are by default trapped in the first question first, and if they get the question right, it will get set to false. But we'll say trapped 2 is equal to true, and trapped 3 is equal to true. Okay, so that is the code that goes with this pseudocode. Declare 3 Boolean variables, trapped 1, trapped 2, and trapped 3, and set them to true. And we'll say declare Boolean variables, just adjust that pseudocode, success and give up, and we want those to be set to false. So we need 2 more Boolean variables here. The first is called success, and this is going to be used to indicate whether or not they actually win the game. If they get all 3 questions right, then we will set success to true. But for now, since they haven't done that, we're going to set it to false. And keep in mind that for the spelling here, true and false in Python start with capital letters, not lowercase letters. So if you had like a lowercase f, it won't highlight correctly, and it will give you this kind of autocorrect option saying, do you want false with a capital F? In which case you would. So we want success and give up equal to false. Okay. So we got the first 2 bits of pseudocode done. Now, the next one says, store your 3 questions you made as variables Q1, Q2, and Q3. So you might ask yourself, what variable types are these going to be if they are questions? Well, since they are, a question is a sentence or something similar to a sentence, then that's going to be stored as a string. Remember, Python just kind of figures out what it needs to be depending on what you put into it. So I'm going to start by saying Q1 is equal to, and then in quotes, because that's how we need to give text. My first question is this one. Since it's SpongeBob SquarePants, under where is the pineapple located? Question mark. So I would read this in an interrogator voice later, maybe. Let's go with question 2. So we'll get all of our questions in there first. Then the next bit of the pseudocode is to write what the answers are for this question. Question 2 is, when you perform your theme song, what do you use as your musical instrument? What do you use as your musical instrument? Question mark. Now, if you know SpongeBob SquarePants, you probably know where the pineapple is located. I watched a video of the theme song to try and find something there. So if you're curious about what is the musical instrument, it is right at the end of the theme song, basically. Question 3 is another set of text. So we say this now, SpongeBob. My final question. Or no, just a single dot. And it's all caps here. Who do you work for? Kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a stereotypical spy question. Who do you work for? So that's what we're going to say for that one. Okay. And that finishes off that line of pseudocode. Store your 3 questions you made up as variables Q1, Q2, Q3. So we've got these 3 variable statements. And overall, this whole file is starting with variables defined at the top. And that's pretty much what all programs will do. Any variables you need, you just put them right at the top of the file. Now, we're going to store our 3 answers to these questions as ants1, ants2, ants3. So if you know SpongeBob SquarePants, then you know that the pineapple is under the sea. So the answer to this one is the sea. We're just going to do these all in lowercase, and we'll write some instructions later that kind of tell the user don't do any capital letters because they'll just end up being wrong. Now for here, I'm going to do an answer 1, and we're going to say alternate. Just in case, the user might not say the sea, I'm just going to say, if they wrote C, that should also be correct. So you don't have to have a second possible answer, but just for quality of life for the user, it's not a bad idea to kind of predict maybe if they had an alternate version of it. Okay, so that's the answer to the first question. Answer 2 is what is the musical instrument? At the end of the theme song, SpongeBob does a little kind of fluty thing on his nose. So the answer is nose, or if we have an alternate, maybe someone would say my nose, or if they were SpongeBob, they would say my nose is the musical instrument. So again, we have an alternate answer there. Finally, answer 3. Who does SpongeBob work for? Oh, I guess this could be, okay, maybe we'll have a 2. I didn't plan for this one, but I think we need maybe an alternate for this one as well. My original, did I spell that right? Nickelodeon, yeah. My initial answer to this is that SpongeBob SquarePants is a Nickelodeon show, but I believe, I'm not a big SpongeBob watcher, but he also works at that Burger Shack, right? I need to look that up right now. SpongeBob Burger Shack boss. Who is it? Is it Patty? No. It's the Flabby Patty Shack. Well, so there really should be an extra answer here because, again, SpongeBob does have a job. So you can code that in if you know the answer. I'm just going to say the answer is Nickelodeon, and we'll stop at that. So let's move on to the next part. So the next bit of pseudocode is store a loss message if they lose the game. So if they lose the game, then we just want a sentence. So we're just kind of storing that for later. So we're going to say loss MSG message MSG is equal to, and here we're going to say, I knew it. You were the imposter. we must wipe your memory. And since this is a kid's show, we're going to add this little cliche, for the sake of the children. Just to be a little silly. And that's the end of that pseudocode line. So just have a loss message. Now we need a success message if the game is won. And we need that variable to be success MSG. So we'll do that. Success MSG is equal to, and the success message is you're the real one, in caps. I'm sorry, I misjudged you. And then he says, Patrick, wipe the memory of the imposter next door. I'm just going to toggle my text so that it wraps on the screen. So the success message is, you're the real one. I'm sorry I misjudged you. Patrick, wipe the memory of the imposter next door. Okay, and there's one final variable that we're going to have here, and this is the kind of message that when you get a question wrong, that kind of displays like a warning. So let's call this one warning. I didn't say what that variable name should be here, but we'll just call it warning. And we'll say warning is, we'll say tisk, tisk, tisk. I need to spell it correctly though. Tisk, tisk, tisk. You reveal yourself with these errors. Okay. So, we've got all of our variables set up. Later on, we're about to get into all of the different while loops, how we have to continually ask the question. But the next one is print out an introductory story and rules for the game. Now, I'll type these out. These parts are a little bit long, and there are some line breaks in here. So you might want to, if you're just kind of looking at the logic of the game, you might want to just skip ahead in the timeline a little bit at the bottom of this video. But first we're going to start with print, and we're going to say you open your eyes and look around, and you look around. New line. You seem to be in some sort of interrogation room. Except everything looks like a mirror. You're not sure if this is real a dream, or maybe virtual reality. But one thing is certain. In all of the reflections, you see yourself. You see yourself, ... square pants, spongy face. You are SpongeBob SquarePants. And we'll throw one extra new line here, because that will just end up looking nicer when it's all printed out later, just to help break up the text. So that's the first bit of exposition. A little bit long, I know. There's going to be two other bits that we want. So another print here. Again, feel free to write what you want, or just skip ahead if you just want to look at the logic. This is all for fun. The person in the room speaks to you. Then we need a new line. There can't be two SpongeBobs. Whoops, that should be a period. We know one of you is fake. If you can answer these questions correctly, then we'll know. Then we'll know you are the real one. If not, I'm afraid we'll have to wipe your memory. Exclamation mark, of course. Okay, 2 out of 3 done there. So the last one is we're going to sneak in, but within the facade, the role-playing here, we're going to say this. By the way, I've been told to tell you to speak in single quote, lowercase. We don't want to use double quotes there because that will kind of break up the overall string. So we can use single quotes there. To speak in lowercase, whatever that means. So this is just kind of a joke where we know what lowercase means. So it's kind of like breaking a fourth wall. That's kind of the idea if you're writing like, I don't know, a show or a theater show. You're letting the audience in on the joke. So the interrogator doesn't know what lowercase means, how to speak in lowercase, but we do, so that's kind of the joke. Okay, so this is the exposition. So now we can move on to the first loop. While trapped 1 is still true. So remember, so now we're going to start our first while loop. So let's write it in here. While trapped 1 equals true. Whoops, and trapped 1, have to spell it exactly the same as what I had before, which was trapped 1. No spaces. So while trapped 1 is equal to true. So we have a code block for the while loop. So you can already see because even the comment is kind of showing the indentation and the block. So we're going to have everything that gets executed inside of this loop. Everything that repeats needs to be indented 1 line. And the easiest way to do that is, well, first the first line gets indented by automatically in VS Code. But if it wasn't, then usually just from the front, just press tab once. Tab is just to the left of the Q button on your keyboard. Okay, so now we have to ask Q1. So since we already stored it above, this is pretty quick. We can just say print Q1. That part's done. Now store the user's answer as ANS. So this is a new variable. And so this storing the user's answer, that means we're going to use that input function that we saw in the last lesson. So we're going to say answer is equal to input. Now, we don't need to do anything about integer like what we did before where it was a number guessing game. We just need the string as it is. Okay, so we're storing the user's answer as ants. If we didn't set this variable, we would still ask the question or ask the user to type in, but that answer wouldn't get stored anywhere and it would just kind of be lost. So we have to make sure we store that as some sort of variable, in this case, ants, short for answer. Now, the next part is if the answer is correct, set trapped 1 to false. Okay, so if the answer is correct, so remember we have the answers up here loaded in. So we want to check if answer, just ANS, is equal to this answer 1, the C, or the alternate, C without the. So we're going to write that this way. There's 2 things that need to be true. So we've seen both in Scratch and with the Arduino how we can do like an AND or an OR to have like 2 conditions. So in Python, we just write OR. So we're going to say if the answer, which is what they put in, if that is equal, so we're checking the equality, so we have the double equals, just like what we had when we said while trapped is true. If answer is equal to answer 1, that would be a success. Or they might say the alternate. So we could check either of these. So we'll get into this code block if the answer was the same as answer 1, or if the answer was the same as the alternate. So this does require a code block, so you can see it's highlighted red here. So I need my colon to start the code block. And what do I need to do if the answer was correct? I need to just say that trapped 1 needs to be set to false. Now, what does that do if we set trapped 1 equal to false? Well, once we go to try to repeat and we go back to the top, we're going to get to that condition at the top where I think I've been putting brackets here most of the time, so I'll do the same thing. When we get to the top and we check the condition, trapped 1 is set to false, so that means the while loop is going to stop running. So we'll go on to the next block of code after that. Okay, I'm also just going to add a little line here just for flavor. We're going to say, very well. It seems you're not a complete imposter. So this person clearly does not trust you. But you know, you'll convince them because you're a SpongeBob expert. Okay, so if they do that, then that's it. And now we have another if. So let's do we can do an else if. So we'll do elif because these are not going to happen at the same time anyway. So if the user is tired, they're like, oh, I can't answer these questions anymore. If they happen to write the magic word quit. So if they write that, then we want to break them out of the game. So we're going to say, the keyword here is break. Okay, and we also want to say that quit is equal to true, right? Because we had a variable for give up, so that's the one we want. So we're going to set give up to true. So if they've given up, if they press quit, we need to make sure that the game is over. Okay, so if they say quit, we're going to say give up, and we're going to break out of this loop. This is a keyword that just kind of ends that loop. There's still going to be 2 more questions, so we'll just have to keep track of whether or not give up was set to true. Okay, but that finishes off that last line here. So the next ones are going to be pretty similar. Okay, so the next block of code is while trap2 is still true. Ask question 2, that's the same format. Store the user's answer as ants. We're going to do that exact same thing again. If the answer is correct, set trap2 to false. If the answer is quit, write the word break, no quotes, to exit the loop. So most of this is the same. So I'm just going to copy this whole block. And when I paste it, I just got to watch the indentation because that will often change as you paste. So I'm going to go underneath here, and I'm going to paste. And so the indentation was fine there. But if I pasted it here, that's where it originally was, that cursor, you can see that the indentation gets a little wonky. In that case, what I would do is just go to the while and back this up 1. Now that is good. Okay, so now when we copy and paste, we have to be very careful not to leave any typos. Copy and pasting is very, very convenient, but you can often forget to make a change, and you can break a code by accident. For example, we need to change not trapped 1 here. We need to change this to trapped 2. So while trapped 2 is still true, we need to print question 2. That's the one we want to display. We can leave this line alone where the answer is equal to the input. Now, if the answer is equal to answer 2, we don't want to check against the first answer again, because that would the user would get very confused. And answer 2 also had an alternate. So we need to change that condition there. And again, here we see trapped 1 again. So trapped 2 would be set to false here. And then this message here, I'm going to change this message a little bit again just so it's not so repetitive. We're going to say very well, but then we'll say, I hope for your sake you are the real one. And then they're going to add in this little jab, this little jab. They're going to say, getting your memory wiped is unpleasant. And still with a new line. Those new lines will show up later when we run this because it will make it more readable. And then we say if answer was quit. So if they quit on the second one, give up is true, and we break. Okay, so we're pretty much done with that one, but we do need to change our while loop a little bit, because if someone gave up on question 1, then we want to make sure that they don't get asked question 2 or question 3. They just want to be done with the game, so we should let them rather than forcing them to quit 3 times in a row. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to say that this first loop here, or the second loop, sorry, should continue if trap 2 is true, but we also want to make sure that quit is still false, or the give up is still false. So we're going to add an and here, just like how we had an or before, where we checked one of 2 things. We're going to make sure that both of these things need to be true. So if we need to make sure that trapped is still true and give up is also false. Okay, so we need to make sure that this question should only get asked if they are still trapped in question 2 and they haven't given up yet. So that's a little change than what we didn't have in the first loop because they haven't been given the option to give up yet. But this will need to be kind of the condition for the third loop as well, which is coming up next. But other than that, this is all good, I think, but we'll find out when we run it later whether I made all the necessary changes. So the next one is the third loop. And again, when you look at what is asked from you here, it's almost identical again. So we're going to copy and paste again. So I'm going to back it up to the back, press paste, just checking the alignment. It all looks good here. But now we got to make our changes. So this is the third question. So it's trapped 3 that needs to be true. But we do still need give up to still be false for them to get this question. So we'll just leave that condition. Then we're going to print question 3 is the one we want. Answer is still equal to input now. But we're just checking this against answer 3. Now, when we go up to the top, answer 3 was just Nickelodeon, right? Because I didn't know I'm not the SpongeBob expert, and I didn't know who they worked for. So there's no answer 3 alt. But if you wrote this and you had an answer 3 alt because you knew the answer, you don't need to change anything in the code. But at this point, I do, because I only have one answer. So I shouldn't have this or anymore. There's no second way that they can win. So I'm just going to delete that part of the condition. So answer has to be equal to answer 3. That's it. So then it's trapped 3 that gets set to false. So that will kind of quit us out of this loop. And we don't need, at this point, they're going to win. So we don't need this extra message. So I'm going to delete that one. But we do still want to have this, if they do choose to quit, even though they're so close, we'll let them quit and that'll give up. So, but if they did, we have one extra thing here. It was in the pseudocode. So if you notice, there was actually one extra line. This one had 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in the pseudocode. This one had a 5th one. So line 64 for me said set success equal to true. So since this is the third and final question, we had that variable up top about success being false. So this is going to help us know at the end whether they get the winning message or the losing message. So right after trapped 3 is false, we're going to say success equals true. So these ones are all, single equalities because we're changing the value of these variables, as opposed to when we have like a while loop or an if statement where we're checking whether this is true, then we use the double equals. So if they get the third question correct, they'll set trap 3 equal to false, and then that will fail this condition the next time it checks, because trap 3 will be false. And even though give up is still false, you need both of those conditions to trigger in order for the overall while loop to trigger. So if one of them was false, or one of them didn't evaluate to kind of true. So for example, if give up was true, then this part here would actually break that whole and, because they both need to be working for that to work. Okay, so this part of the loop is done. Now we have one more bit of pseudocode left. If success is true, print your success message. Else print the loss message. So we're going to say if success is true, then we had a success message up here, I think, right? That's what we had. It was called success MSG, where it says, you're the real one. I'm sorry I misjudged you. So we're just going to say print, need a colon, and this is an if statement, so we do need it indented. Print success MSG. Now, if they got to the end here, the only other way they could get to the end is if they quit. So that's why we need this else message. So this is if success wasn't set to true, which only happens if they answer the third question correctly. So if they quit, they would have exited the code. We still would have we would have skipped over maybe some of the loops, but we would still end up down here. But success would still be false. So we end up in this second block, in which case we have to print the loss message. So where was that one? That was loss MSG. I knew it. You were the imposter. We must wipe your memory for the sake of the children. So we're going to print the loss message in that case. So we're using those variables up top just to kind of help shorten the code when we actually write it. Printing the success message just looks a little bit easier to read rather than typing out a full sentence here. And it also lets you still use this code down here. If you wanted to change the character, you wouldn't have to change quite as many lines inside the code. You would just kind of change some of your variables at the top, and that's a little bit nicer. So we're just about done here. I'm just going to add one little bit here where I'm just going to tell the user that this is the end. So I'm just going to say print, and we're going to start actually with a new line, and we're going to say the end, all in capitals. And that is actually all of our game, unless I made an error. So we're going to run this and see if it works. So we press play. Let's give this terminal a little bit more room here. Okay, I thought I lost some text there. Okay, so we see this. You open your eyes and look around. You seem to be in some sort of interrogation room, except everything looks like a mirror. Everything's really reflective. You're not sure if this is real, a dream, or maybe virtual reality. But one thing is certain. In all of the reflections, you see yourself. Square pants, spongy face. You are SpongeBob SquarePants. The person in the room speaks to you. There can't be two SpongeBobs. We know one of you is fake. If you can answer these questions correctly, then we'll know you are the real one. If not, I'm afraid we'll have to wipe your memory. By the way, I've been told to tell you to speak in lowercase, whatever that means. Where is the pineapple located? The sea. The pineapple is under the sea. Very well. It seems you're not a complete imposter. When you perform your theme song, what do you use as your musical instrument? It's my nose. I use my nose. Very well. I hope for your sake that you are the real one. Getting your memory wiped is unpleasant. Now, SpongeBob, my final question. Who do you work for? Nickelodeon. You're the real one. I'm sorry I misjudged you. Patrick, wipe the memory of the imposter next door. The end. So you can run this again to try to go through the errors. Let's just do that maybe quickly. Where is it located? I'm just going to write hi. Hi. So we're getting the loop. Keeps asking the question. That's good. I'm going to quit. If we quit, then let's see what happens. Quit. I knew it. You were the imposter. We must wipe your memory for the sake of the children. The end. All right. So that's the end of this one here. So hopefully you followed along and were able to understand the different parts of the code. If you don't, just next time we're in class, you just ask the question. We can work through the different sections, but hopefully that's just a good application of some of the bits and pieces we've been learning so far. Feel free to now use this code, change it to make it more fun for yourselves. You can share your files with each other or show your fellow classmates if you make a particularly interesting question or game, or if you you and your friend both are both fanatics or know a lot about one particular character, you can treat it like a fun trivia game as well. But we'll sign off on this video for now, and till next time.